Princess Tando sat alone on the cold stone steps behind the palace kitchen. The moon hung full and bright above her, casting silver light across her round face. Inside her chest, something ached, a hollow spot that grew bigger each year. She could hear the drums from the moon market in the village. Laughter floated on the night air. The girls would be dancing now, with their colorful wraps that swirled when they moved and bright beads in their hair. They would spin under the moon's glow. Tando had never been allowed to join them. "You wouldn't fit in," her mother the queen would say. But Tando knew what those words really meant. She was too big, too round, too heavy when she walked, too loud when she breathed. So Tando stayed hidden, wearing plain clothes and eating alone. Every year, the moon market came. Every year, Tando watched from a window, her heart beating in time with drums she could never dance to. When Tando was little, she asked her mother why no one ever picked her to dance with the other children. Her mother looked away, unable to meet her eyes. "Because your beauty is too much for the world," she said softly. Even then, Tando could hear the sadness under her mother's words. It wasn't love. It was shame dressed as sweetness. As Tando grew older, she built walls around her heart. She learned to walk quietly, though it never seemed quiet enough. She learned to make herself small, though she could never be small enough. She learned to stay in shadows, though she longed for the light. Her father, the king, barely looked at her. Her mother dressed her in dark colors and loose clothes. The palace servants whispered when she passed. The village children pointed and laughed. Tando's pain became her shadow, always there, always following, darkening even her brightest moments. Tonight, the sky was clear, the moon was bright, and the music was louder than ever. Something broke open inside Tando, like an egg cracking in her chest. Her stomach twisted, but it wasn't hunger. It was something worse, a longing so deep it burned. Tandy stood up, wiped her hands on her dress, and whispered to herself, "Maybe I don't need their market." Then she turned and walked away from the palace, but not toward the village where everyone danced. She went in the opposite direction, toward the dark woods that no one ever talked about. The forest felt alive around her. Shadows moved between tall trees with trunks as wide as 3 men. Each step took her deeper, away from everything she knew. Dry leaves crunched under her feet. Her heart pounded harder than the distant drums. What if she couldn't find her way back? What if no one even noticed she was gone? Then she saw it, a soft blue light glowing between 2 ancient trees. It pulled her forward like a whisper. The air changed, filled with spices she had never smelled before. Under the blue light stood a wooden sign carved with 3 words, "Dream Traders Beyond." Tana's breath caught in her throat. Something cold and exciting ran down her spine. She took one last look behind her, then stepped through the space between the trees. The market opened before her like a dream, lanterns hanging from wooden poles, each glowing a different color. Stalls lined a winding path, draped in cloths of every shade. Strange shapes moved behind the fabric. Voices whispered words she couldn't quite hear. Other traders sat on low stools, their faces hidden by hoods. They didn't call out like normal market sellers. They waited, watching as Tando walked past. Her heart raced. This was nothing like the moon market in the village. This place felt older, deeper, like it had been here since the beginning of time. A trader with skin as dark as night and eyes that shone like silver stars beckoned her closer. His voice was soft as wind through grass. "Welcome, princess," he said. "Here, we trade more than treasures. We trade what haunts you." Tando's breath caught. The word haunts made her spine tingle. The trader offered her a small clay bowl filled with dust that glowed like moonlight. "Your first trade is free," he whispered. "Give me one pain and walk away lighter." Tando's hand trembled. Could she really give away the hurt that had lived inside her for so long? And if she did, what would fill its place? She moved deeper into the market. At each stall, traders offered to take something from her, a memory, a fear, a regret, a dream. Each trade promised freedom from some piece of her pain. A trader with a mirror showed Tando her reflection, not her round face and soft curves, but a shadow of shame. Eyes looking down, shoulders hunched, tears falling like rain. "Trade a memory," the mirror trader said. "Let the glass free you." Tander thought of the day village girls laughed when she tripped in the market square. Their cruel voices echoed in her ears even now. That memory burned hot inside her. If she gave it away, would the shame fade too? She pressed a silver token into the trader's hand and felt the memory drift away like smoke. When she looked in the mirror again, her reflection stood straight and tall. No tears fell. Relief washed over her. "Until the mirror went dark," the trader smiled. "You are free of that pain," he said, "but the market is never without cost." As Tando walked away, she felt something missing. Not just the painful memory, but something else, something important. A piece of herself had gone with it. Stall after stall offered similar trades. Give up your voice, give up your name, give up your dreams of belonging. Each time, Tando almost said yes. Each time something held her back. In a tent draped with midnight hue cloth, a trader with amber eyes watched her closely. "To leave this market," the trader said, "you must make one final trade. Offer your pain willingly or stay forever." Snow's hands trembled. "What happens if I give you all my pain?" The trader's eyes gleamed. "You will forget the shame, forget the hurt. You will be empty, ready to be filled with something new." Chandor closed her eyes. The market's question echoed in her mind. If pain is all you know, who are you without it? She thought of her mother's sad eyes. She thought of the palace walls that kept her hidden. She thought of the moon market she had never seen. All her life, she had wanted to be free of her pain, to be someone else, someone smaller, lighter, someone who fit in. But now, standing in this strange market of dreams, Tando understood something that shook her to her core. Her pain had shaped her. Her struggles had made her kind. Her loneliness had taught her to see beauty in small things. Without her pain, who would she be? "I choose to keep my pain," she whispered. The market grew still. The lanterns dimmed. The traders watched in silence. "Are you certain?" the ember-eyed trader asked. "No one has ever refused our final trade." Tandy stood straighter, feeling the weight of her body, the weight of her years, the weight of her heart, all of it hers, all of it precious. "My pain is mine," she said, her voice growing stronger. "It is part of my story. I will carry it, not trade it away." The market shuddered around her. The stalls began to fold like paper. The lanterns flickered out, one by one. Only a single path remained, leading back to the forest. As Tando walked, she felt tears on her cheeks. Her heart still ached with old hurts. Her mind still carried memories of shame. But something had changed inside her. Something had grown stronger. She stepped through the trees and back into the familiar woods. The moon still shone overhead, lighting her way home. When she reached the palace courtyard, the drums had fallen silent. The moon market in the village had ended. People were heading home, their laughter fading into the night. The queen stood in the doorway, staring at her daughter. But this time there was no shame in her eyes, only wonder. "Tando," she said softly. "Where have you been?" Tanda lifted her head. She didn't make herself small. She didn't hide in shadows. "I went to a market," she said, "a place where dreams are traded." "And what did you trade?" the queen asked. Tando smiled, a small, sad smile that held all the wisdom of her journey. "Nothing," she said. "I kept it all." The queen stepped forward, really seeing her daughter perhaps for the first time. And was that the right choice? Tanda thought about the market's question one last time. If pain is all you know, who are you without it? "Yes," she answered, "because I am more than my pain, but I am also not whole without it." She looked up at the moon, feeling its light on her face. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The village girls would still whisper. Her body would still be too big for some people's idea of beauty. But tonight, Tando had learned that some burdens are not meant to be traded away. Some weights are worth carrying. Some pains make us who we are. And as she walked into the palace, her steps were heavier than before, and somehow strangely lighter too. As Tando fell asleep that night, the question from the market still echoed in her dreams. If pain is all you know, who are you without it? But now, there was a new question taking shape, one the market had never asked her. If you accept your pain as part of you, what might you become? The answer waited like a seed in dark soil, ready to grow with the dawn. When Tanda woke the next morning, sunlight streamed through her window. For the first time in years, she didn't immediately pull the curtains closed. She let the light touch her face, her arms, her whole body. A soft knock came at her door. It was her mother, the queen, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "There's another market today," the queen said. "Not the moon market. A regular one, for bread and cloth and such things." She paused, twisting her hands together. "Would you like to come with me?" Tando felt her heart jump. The queen had never invited her to the village before. "Yes," Tando said. "I would." As they walked through the palace gates side by side, Tando felt eyes on her. Servants stopped to stare. Guards whispered behind their hands. But something had changed in how Tando carried herself. She didn't shrink away. She didn't try to disappear. In the village square, people made way for the queen. When they saw Tando beside her, some looked surprised. Some looked curious. A few looked away. Near the bread stall, Tando spotted a group of girls. The same ones who danced at the moon market. The same ones who had laughed at her before. They watched her, whispering behind their hands. The old Tando would have hidden behind her mother. But today, she met their eyes. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. One of the girls, tall, with braided hair, stepped forward. "Princess," she said with a small bow. "We missed you at the moon market." Tando knew it wasn't true, but instead of calling out the lie, she simply said, "I found a different market." "What kind of market?" another girl asked. Tandy thought of the dream traders and their glowing lanterns. She thought of the pain she had chosen to keep. "The kind where you learn what matters," she said. The girls looked confused, but the tall one nodded slowly, as if she somehow understood. "Next moon market," she said. "You should come, if you want to." It wasn't quite an apology, it wasn't quite friendship, but it was an opening. A crack in the wall that had always stood between Tando and the world. "Maybe I will," Tando said. Seasons passed. Tanda grew stronger, not smaller, kinder, not bitter. She began to join her father in royal meetings. She visited villages across the kingdom. She listened to people's troubles and remembered their names. The queen watched her daughter change. Sometimes, when Tando spoke to visiting nobles or settled disputes among villagers, the queen would touch the crown on her own head as if feeling its weight anew. One evening, as they walked in the palace garden, the queen asked, "What happened that night in the forest? What did you really find?" Tanda touched a flower, feeling its soft petals. I found a place where I could have traded away all my pain, she said, all my memories of being different, of being too much. The queen's eyes filled with tears. And you chose not to. The pain taught me things, Tando said. How to see people who are hurting, how to be gentle with others who don't fit in. The queen was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I thought I was protecting you. I didn't want the world to hurt you because of your size. But you hurt me instead, Tando said softly. The queen nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes, I'm sorry. Tando took her mother's hand. Forgiveness wouldn't come in a single moment. It would grow slowly, like all important things. Tomorrow, the queen said, I want you to sit beside me on the throne. The kingdom should see who you really are. A year passed, then 2. Tando no longer sat on kitchen steps watching the moon rise. Now she stood tall in the village square as the moon market opened each season. Sometimes she would dance with the others, her body moving in ways that felt right to her. Sometimes she would sing songs that made children laugh and old women cry. Sometimes she would just watch, happy to be part of things without being the center. On the night of her 20th birthday, as the moon hung full and bright, Ta Due slipped away from the celebrations. She followed the path through the woods, half expecting to find the blue lantern and the dream traders market. But the spot between the ancient trees was empty. No lanterns glowed, no sign pointed the way, no traders waited to bargain for her pain. Tando wasn't surprised. She no longer needed what the market offered. As she turned to leave, she noticed a young girl sitting alone on a fallen log. The girl's shoulders were hunched, her eyes were fixed on the ground. Tando recognized that look, the weight of being different, of not belonging. She sat down beside the girl. The moon is beautiful tonight, Tando said. The girl glanced up, then quickly down again. I wouldn't know. I don't go to the market. Well, not? Tando asked, though she already knew the answer. I don't fit in, the girl whispered. I'm too quiet, too strange. The other children don't want me there. Tando was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Let me tell you about a different kind of market, one hidden in these very woods. The girl looked up, curious now. It's a place where dreams are traded, Tando said, where memories can be lost and found, where questions are more valuable than answers. Is it real? The girl asked. Tando smiled. As real as your pain, as real as your hope. She held out her hand. I can't take you there. It's a journey each person must make alone. But I can walk with you back to the village, to the moon market, and stand beside you while you find your place. The girl hesitated, then took Tando's hand. Together they walked out of the woods and toward the lights of the village. As they reached the edge of the square, the music grew louder. People were dancing, laughing, living their lives without noticing the two figures watching from the shadows. I'm scared, the girl whispered. Tando squeezed her hand. I know, but remember this. Your pain is part of you, but it isn't all of you. The girl took a deep breath and stepped forward into the light of the lanterns. Tando watched her go, then followed quietly behind. In the center of the square, the girl stood awkwardly, not knowing what to do. A boy noticed her and offered his hand. The girl looked back at Tando, who nodded encouragingly. As the girl began to dance, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, Tando felt a familiar question echo in her heart. If pain is all you know, who are you without it? But now, years after her night in the Dream Traders Market, Tando had found her answer. You are what you choose to become. And she had chosen to become someone who helped others carry their pain until they were strong enough to find their own answers. Under the same moon that had watched her entire journey, Princess Tando, future queen of a kingdom that was learning to see with new eyes, smiled and stepped into the dance,